Hello and Happy New Year! I'm so excited to be back and share this new project with you. Today's all about wet distressing your furniture. I remember when I first started painting furniture and I heard the term wet distressing, I thought it was something fancy. For some reason, I don't know why, I thought it was maybe tricky to do. But in reality, wet distressing could not be a more simple painting technique. Really, it's just wiping back your paint to reveal what's underneath. And the best part about this is no sanding is required. In today's video, I'm also going to be sharing how I prefer to wet distress, which is a little bit different than the way most people do it. I really hope you find this technique easy to do and it inspires you to give it a try. Some benefits of wet distressing is there is no sanding required. Because there's no sanding, there's no dusty cleanup. You have a lot of control when you're wet distressing, whereas with sandpaper it can be a little trickier. Because you're just using a damp cloth, the lighter the pressure you apply, the lighter the distressing you're going to get. The more pressure you apply, the more distressing you're going to get. So there's a lot of control with it. Another nice thing about wet distressing is you can layer paints. So distressing is revealing what's underneath your paint. That could be wood, that could be a base color that you painted, it could be, for instance, a glaze that you applied. It could be a variety of maybe you did a different color stain. So wet distressing will reveal whatever is underneath your paint. So you can do numerous colors if you wanted. You could have 2 or 3 different colors showing through your wet distress. Whereas when you're using a sandpaper, that's very, very hard to achieve. And the main benefit of wet distressing is it's a gorgeous way to showcase details, trim, insets, just to really show off anything on your furniture that you want to enhance. It gives a nice, worn, aged look and can really add some character to your furniture. So most tutorials you'll see that the distressing takes place after the paint has dried for 1 or 2 hours. You want it dry but not cured because that way the paint will be able to be wiped off quite easily. I like to wet distress while my paint is still wet. This way, it's my favorite way to wet distress actually because I get a more blended and seamless distressed look. It's probably not the traditional way to do it, but I find that I much prefer the look because while it's still wet, I do it for each layer. So if I paint 1 layer of paint on, I wet distress it and pull the paint back off the piece. Let that all dry. And then I paint the second coat and again go in and wet distress all the details just with a damp cloth, wiping the wet paint off, and I get a more, it just looks a little more blended and soft, I find, rather than if I let the paint dry, it looks a little harsher when I wet distress it. So here's what the first coat looks like. I just wanted to bring you in to show you a few of the details. You can tell where I wiped off with the paper towel. And what I'm trying to do is get, for the second coat, this will be a stronger red. And then right here, I don't know whether I'm going to use a little bit of gilding wax to make this pop, but I want it to have a lot of dimension. And that's why I'm wiping it back so you see some of the wood still showing through. There's more of the wood showing through in some areas rather than others. You'll see that some have a darker red to it. But it's really coming along. This first coat looks amazing. Same here on the drawers. You'll notice that right here I'm keeping some wood showing, and then the stronger red will be in some other areas. So I'm going to start applying the second coat and we'll see how that works out. So here I'm painting the second coat. Again, the first coat has gone on and I've wiped back all the details with the paper towel while the paint was still wet. And here you can see that I'm painting the second coat in sections. I'm going to get into all the little grooves and the nooks and crannies because I want a strong red in behind, and then I want all these gorgeous wood details to stand out. So I'm really trying to get in all the nooks and crannies, working in sections. I have a paper towel with me, so while the paint is still wet, I'm going to go in and wipe back that second coat to reveal the wood underneath. Here I'm using a paper towel, like just an average kitchen paper towel, but my preferred method is a damp shop towel. I'm crazy for those shop towels. They're fabulous. I can't go without them in my studio. But you can also use lint-free cloth. You could use an old t-shirt. You could use an old sock. You could use a sponge. You could use, I know a lot of people like using baby wipes. Really anything. You could use anything soft and lint-free to wipe back the paint as I'm doing here. So I just keep playing with it. Again, you don't want your cloth or paper towel to be wet. It's not to be soaking wet. You don't want it dripping. I use a spray mister. I just usually like spraying it lightly to get a nice damp cloth. And then I just keep playing with it. And, you know, if you pull back a little more and you don't like the looks of it, you can always go in, just like I'm doing here, and reapply a little bit more paint. And you just work in sections until you get a look that you really, really like. After you've wet distressed, then you have plenty of options. You can actually do gilding wax on this. You can do, what I'm going to do is probably a bit of both. I'm going to do a black glaze, which will sink into all these grooves, and then I'm going to wipe off the excess. So it's really going to give a lot of dimension and depth to the detail that we have going on here. You could also, if you wanted like a different color on this ornate detail, you could dip your paintbrush in, say, a beige or a brown or whatever color you'd like to see, and you could just lightly glide it over to highlight these details, or you could leave it as is, because as you can see, it's really, really a nice look. But for me, I think I just want to add a little more depth to this wet distressing. So what I'm going to be doing is adding this black glaze from Dixie Belle. I'm going to be wiping off a lot of the excess, but I just want to get it into all the crevices and the detail. And then you'll see what I mean after this piece is done. It just gives it a little bit of extra oomph, but you see all this grain coming through and all the dimension on the detail. So again, I just put it on. Take a shop cloth or any sort of paper towel, lint-free cloth, and I'm just going to dab all the excess off, just so it stays in the crevices. And this will turn dark because this is the black glaze I'm using. I know it kind of looks like a bluish hue to it right now, but it does turn black afterwards. And then this will give added extra depth. I hope you found this video helpful. Please subscribe, give it a thumbs up, and I will see you next time. Have a super day. Thanks for watching.